Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Ako po si G. Tonji at nanunood po kayo ng Kababayan Today. Nandito po ako sa University of Hawaii dahil napaka-espesyal ng programa natin ngayong araw na to. We are talking to Professor Patricia Halagao. Patricia, thank you for agreeing to speak with us here on Kababayan Today.
Thank you for having me today.
You are one of the few Filipino professors here at University of Hawaii. So before we begin talking about your academic journey, let's talk about your background.
Okay.
Saan ka pinanganak? Where were you born?
I was actually born in Manila in the UP General Hospital. And I was a baby, 6 weeks old, when my parents actually immigrated to Michigan. So I actually grew up in Michigan for 11 years of my life before my family then moved us to California.
Okay, so you're what they consider 1.5 generation.
1.5.
Okay.
I can claim I was born in the Philippines, and I'm happy to say that. But I did grow up in the United States.
Okay, where are your parents from in the Philippines?
So my mother is actually from Pasay City in the Philippines, and my father is from Imus, Cavite, but then also grew up in Baguio.
Okay.
So he's from the northern part as well.
Okay, have you been back to the Philippines?
Of course, of course. As early as when I was 10 years old, I think, that we went back to the Philippines with my family. And then since then, my more recent time was actually when I was invited to speak at Naval University in Tacloban. 2000, I can't remember now, I think it was 2011 or so. And so before everything hit with a typhoon. So I actually had a chance to go around in the community there, and I was invited to talk about my educational research in Tacloban and at Naval University.
Great. So speak to us about growing up in America as a Filipino. How was that experience?
You know, my life experience growing up has really impacted my work today, because I actually grew up in Michigan in a little town right outside of Detroit, and it was a very, I'd say a very black and white neighborhood. And so being from the Philippines and being brown, I never fit in. And so I was, as a child, actually told many times to go back home, wherever that was. And so I actually experienced a lot of discrimination growing up and feeling just a lot of negativity towards myself as a Filipina. And so a lot of my work today focuses on making sure that no child ever experiences these kinds of experiences in school or in their communities or anywhere in their life.
Okay, so let's talk about your work. You pursued higher education all the way, and now you're a professor here at the University of Hawaii. Talk to us about the challenges of being Filipino in higher academics.
Well, you know, I have to say that there are challenges, but then there's also been opportunities in my life. And so I am fortunate that my parents actually were physicians. And so they immigrated in the 1970s, post 1965 brainwave drain from the Philippines to the United States. And so I've always in many ways had role models in terms of higher education. So I've been privileged in that sense.
But you didn't pursue medicine.
I did not pursue medicine.
How was that conversation when you told your parents you weren't going to pursue medicine?
They were actually very supportive.
Wonderful.
You know, when I was a child, I had in the basement of my house my own fake little classroom where I had my own students, and I told my mom that when I was very little that I wanted to actually be a doctor and a teacher at the same time. I had
and
it all
that you
worked out.
are.
Exactly, so many ways. So I said I would be a teacher during the weekdays and a doctor on the weekends, and so in many ways it's been fulfilled.
Yes,
now that
because you've been able to combine
both. And so I've been lucky that I have parents that supported my career choices. Not very many Filipinos go into education as a field.
Why do you think that is?
I think in many ways parents they look at traditional kinds of forms of success in terms of profession. Nurse, doctor, engineer,
lawyer.
Exactly. And so education may not be one of those traditional fields also that pays well as well, but to me it's a profession that has so much importance in terms of producing our generation of leaders and young people that are leaders in our community. And so I'm attracted to the profession because I love working with children, but then I'm also really interested in issues of equity and justice, and I want to make sure that those kinds of issues are addressed in education.
So education, what you do in your academic profession is you teach teachers.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work? What are you able to impart to them?
Mm-hmm. Well, I am a former teacher, first of all. So I used to teach in Oakland, California.
Mm-hmm.
I taught there for several years in actually the projects in an area that was under-resourced. Very many, I'd say kids from disadvantaged backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's really important when you're working with teachers, many of them are the ones that create the opportunities for the children.
Yes.
And so the work that I do is in multicultural education and social studies. And so for me, it's important that teachers understand who their children are, where they're from, what their backgrounds are, so that you can connect where they're from to what they're supposed to learn in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
As well as empowering them to have their voice in when they see there's wrong going around them and there's inequity that the students...
So you're to give a voice
Right.
to that.
Exactly.
Well, Patricia, it's been wonderful to speak to you. I look forward to hearing all about what you're going to be doing, because I know that you are shaping what it means to be a Filipino, not just in education, but in our culture. So maraming salamat.
Walang anuman.
Thanks, guys. We'll be back here on Kababayan Today.